mirror and seeing God. As you're getting dressed for the day, you can feel that energy around you. With each step you take, you can feel that God energy. It sounds so easy and it's so difficult. With the chaos and the confusion that you had in your head, brought about by the media, brought about by work, brought about by traffic, you forget how holy you truly are. Let's go back to that picture that you first saw, that picture of the Creator in your mind. And see a smiling being that is there for you anytime you want. For some of you, as I talk, the visage of that smiling being changes. It can become a Native American woman. Look again. What is that picture that you carry with you in your head? For some, it's a flame. What is yours? Just take a moment to bring that picture up again. Your God, your Creator in your mind. And sit here and hold it as you listen to the wonderful Reverend Sean. Hold that picture. Know that you are completely at peace with God within you. And Sean, I know this is spur of the moment, but is there any way you have a chant that you could do for us that helps us open up more to God? Do you need a microphone for this? Just hold on to that for a moment. John, thank you so much. You brought in a whole more of a dimension to the Creator by doing that. I really do thank you. Could you share what you said? In what language?
So that wasn't a language, those are just vocables, but that is related to the element of water, and it connects us back to our ancestors because we're all connected through water. So it's about bringing that forward into the now and also connecting to our descendants, those who come after us. So, yeah.
Thank you so very much.
Oh.
Can we give him a hand? See, be careful. You never know when you're going to get called upon or what I'm going to ask you to do. It's a wonderful, spur of the moment thing. I'm so delighted. I know he's been doing retreats and doing some marvelous things for the land. So we thank you so much. Anytime he does a chant, what it does is it takes me to another dimension. And so when we think we just are two-dimensional, it just opens us up and it's so wonderful. How many of you think of yourself as a spiritualist? How many of you think of yourself as spiritual? Me. Okay, have you ever thought of what's the difference? Yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today. As Kirky sprays the wall. It's
Wonder in your way of being.
Because I hear this when I do readings with people. They come in and I said, are you a particular faith? And they say, oh no, I'm spiritual. As if that says absolutely everything. But really it says absolutely nothing. You have no idea when someone says they're spiritual what they're talking about. And the fact that they're coming to see a psychic says they're probably into spiritualism a bit also. And I've never seen anybody as a definition as spiritual/spiritualist. But I think that's what a lot of you are here. You don't just follow a path of what you learned as a small child. Quite often, people just kind of, oh, that was nice, but that's a step that I was on at that point in time, and then you move on. And what it says, when I was reading about this, spiritualism is a belief in God and also supernatural entities, believing that a medium can channel spirits from the spirit world, that there is life after death, and all phenomena that occur within the realms of nature, both physical and spiritual, are manifestations of infinite intelligence. And that's what our parent church is based on. The Universal Church of the Master is based on what I was just reading. And what it says about spirituality, on the other hand, spirituality is a personal experience. It is a search that leads a person to acknowledge the reason of their existence. Sometimes the religious tradition a person was born with just isn't a good fit. Have any of you ever felt that what you were born with, that religion wasn't bad, but it just wasn't a good fit. And so you're a seeker, so you're out looking for something else. So you're on a path. Each one of us is on a path. We can have spirituality and we can have spiritualism and we can combine it into however works for us. But it makes it difficult at times to discuss it with somebody else. Okay? When they say, well, why aren't you? Whatever they happen to believe is the truth. And we have been looking for the truth for centuries. Every religion that you hear about is based on their vision of the truth. And so you have to stop and think about that. Because I hear people saying, well, they're wrong. No, that's their vision of what they believe in. But I do like the idea of people seeking out their own truth. How many of you were raised Catholic? Anybody in here raised Catholic? I cannot walk into a Catholic church without crossing myself. It's like I'm hardwired that way, you know? And I kind of have to go, isn't that interesting that still holds on? And it's the same with other things that I learned at various churches that I have attended. They're as part of that. So I'm an eclectic gathering of different parts of different religions, all put together into the Universal Life Church. Not True Life. Universal Church of the Master. And so when you think of that, there are just so many ways that you can look at the Creator. And if it's you want to hold on to your basic teachings, that's great. But very much like a tree, each one of us has different branches. Our roots might be rooted in how we were planted, but as we grow, we get so many different branches. And that, to me, is what makes us such a strong individuals, is when we branch out. And we bring in a bit of astrology over here, and we bring in a little bit of numerology, and we bring in what I call mediumship. Whatever it is you're bringing in as a branch, know that those just add to everything you already have.
Make the tree fuller.
Yeah, it makes the tree a lot fuller and a lot prettier, don't you think, if you can add a lot of branches, a lot of different leaves to it? Why do people go to see a psychic? Why do they go to see a medium? They're looking for answers. And they're hoping that somebody is going to be able to give them to them. Well, when I started looking into all of that, I found out that how mediumship got to the United States was through the Shakers. How many of you have ever heard of the Shakers? The Shakers were amazing, and when they got here, there was Mother Ann and 8 people, and at the height, there were thousands of people that belonged to the Shakers, lots of money and lots of land. These were industrious people, they were hardworking people. But one of the things they did was mediumship. And they were thought of as a little bit weird, right? As more and more people came from the established religions because they did these various different things. Well, the reason you don't hear about the Shakers these days is one of the things that they believed in was celibacy. The last Shakers died in like 1978. And so we know them by their furniture. Shaker furniture was considered very good furniture. And they were very devout and very exciting people. They sang and they danced and they clapped and they shouted and they did readings and they talked in tongues. That sounds pretty exciting. But they believed that Adam and Eve were the original sinners because they were sexual beings. So the only way they got new recruits was to go outside the faith. And that's how they recruited, and then they started, all of the basic people started dying off. So we don't want that to happen to what I call the Universal Church of the Master. Because a lot of our people are going on. They are passing away. When we went to our conference, it was very hard to find somebody under the age of 60. Okay? So I want you, younger people, to say, wait a minute, there's a church here where I can dance and I can sing and I can do mediumship and I can do all these things, and I do believe in sex. And, so keep us alive and keep us moving. How many of you have heard of other instances of spirits talking? Well, I think one of the ones that we all know about is Joan of Arc. And Joan of Arc was only 14. She went on and she was defending with an army, leading the French army to defeat the British occupation. And she was killed She was assassinated, or however you want to call it, at the age of 19. Very short lifespan, mainly because she heard voices. And we've had people being put to death because they heard voices a lot of times. So I want you to know that that's one of the things now in this country, that it's okay to be a medium. It's okay to hear voices. And as I was studying what other incidences we have of this, one of us, a lady and that I was fascinated to read about. Her name was Nettie Colburn Maynard. And when she was 15 in 1868, she started hearing voices. And she started writing down what she heard. A friend of hers was a friend of Mary Todd Lincoln and said, "You need to talk to Mary about this," because they had just lost their son Willie. So Willie Lincoln had died at a young age, and of course the Lincoln family was just crushed by his loss. So Nellie went in and gave her messages from Willie. And Mary was so impressed. She asked her to come to Washington, D.C. I thought it was interesting that by then Nellie was at 21, and she said, okay. But what happened is she didn't have the funds to travel and stay away from home. So they said, okay, they give her a cabinet position. And she was Director of Agriculture. That reminds me of some of the cabinet positions that are being handed out these days.
Yeah, talking about Trump.
And it was like, oh, okay. But what she did is she got a message that there needed to be a freeing of the slaves. And she gave it to Abraham Lincoln, and that's why he presented the Emancipation Proclamation. It was based on what Nellie had to say. And I had sometimes I'm going to call her Nellie and sometimes Nettie because that's how I found it. And when I was reading, I don't know who dropped the crossbows or how it, but it's one or the other. But anyway, this wonderful young woman was so excited about the president of the country doing something that she had channeled. But what they say, that his cabinet argued about it so much, the Emancipation Proclamation, that it became totally dysfunctional. The cabinet was not in agreement at all. And I don't think any of us realize how lucky we were that President Lincoln had listened to a young woman channeling spirits. After they put out the Emancipation Proclamation, she once more channeled from her spirit, what she called her Congress of Spirits, that they needed to create a committee to control and regulate all the affairs connected with the free men. Because after the slaves were freed, they had so little awareness of what they could do or what they couldn't do and how they were represented. And so they started setting up all sorts of different programs to help the free men. And that was because she had said this is what she had just channeled. How many of you know of another president who listened to people from getting messages?
Reagan.
Yes, Ronald Reagan. And Jean Dixon was his advisor, and she was an astrologer. And his wife Nancy started listening and kept getting more and more information. So we've had a lot. This has gone on for a long time. Well, let's go back a bit. Following the Civil War and the Spanish-American War, we had a lot of wars right there, kind of back to back. People were going through a very difficult time. They were losing mainly the men, their husbands, their children, even their grandfathers were going off to war, not coming back. And they wanted to be able to talk to them. And they found out that there were some people who could talk to the dead. And these people gathered together in groups. But quite often, they were considered heretics. They were put not to death as much as put in jail. Well, the people that represented the universal, our church, the Universal Church of the Master, what happened is Daddy Briggs and a bunch of people said, we're not going to let this happen. We're not going to let people who are communicating with the dead and helping people who are the widows and who are the people who have lost so many people, we're not going to let them keep being put in jail. And if they would round up people and then ask for names. Doesn't this sound familiar? Kind of like the way we were doing when it was the Communist Party in the 50s. They would just round up all these people, throw them in jail, and say, "You got to tell us who the other people are. Who are these other mediums?" So what Daddy Briggs did, the reason our church was founded, was to supply bail. Isn't that a good reason to have a church? Yeah. He said, "Hey, they're not going to do this. These are people that are doing work. These are people who are spiritual beings. These are people who are helping. And we're not going to just let them get thrown in jail." And a lot of them couldn't afford bail. So that's what they set together the church for. And that was in 1908. Just following the end of the Civil War and all the things that were going on. So when you think about what an amazing thing to do. Well, he was not the only person out there doing New Thought. There were a lot of New Thought churches forming at the same time in the 1920s and the 1930s. And one of them that is interesting to read about is the Fox Sisters. The Fox Sisters were young women who did tapping and rapping. They were discounted, and then they were found to have come up with some good things, and then they were discounted again. Very interesting, but they were very active, and it brought about an awareness of something going on from the other side. The other metaphysical churches that started then were Charles Fillmore, where you know Charles in Unity Church. We also have, as I said, Daddy Briggs was doing his thing in UCM. Dr. Ernest Holmes for Science of Mind. Mary Baker Eddy did the Christian Science. All of these came about in the same period of time. Like every revolution, it was New Thought. New Thought. And what the New Thought said is you're important. It's not just God the Creator. Listen to yourself. And that whole idea of you being important was so new and so exciting that it started propelling this new thought out of the United States and all around the world. And when you think of that, when we realize that each one of us must travel our own path, we don't have to be born one particular religion and be that for the rest of our lives. We can choose any path that we want. And there's no single set of fixed rules that have to apply to everybody. How many of you feel that way? That you can follow your own path? Yeah. And you don't have to follow a single set of rules. But we're at a unique stage because now all of those other religions, whether they're spiritual or spiritualistic teachings, they're not exotic and strange anymore. We can find them with just one touch, one click. And the computer opens up and we can read about anything that we want. We can drive down the streets, and how many bookstores are there? How many religious organizations are on the streets as we drive down? How many churches? How many mosques? How many synagogues? We drive down and we can see them, and we can go online and find out who they are, what they do, and what they think about.
There's like 3 of them right down.
Yeah. In other words, this kind of freedom is rare, folks, where nobody's going to put you to death because of the way you think. And it's like we're in a new marketplace. And like I mentioned last week, tarot cards, mediumship, psychics are a new franchise that's making lots of money. It's amazing how many people are looking for answers in the spiritualistic arena. So think about it. Gone are the days of the one church on the corner. How many of you went to the church on the corner? I know I did. I became a Methodist because the church was just a half a block down, you know. It was one of those things that was easy. Well, that church around the corner now is the church in the computer. You can go online and find every information you ever wanted, and you can find friends and people to communicate with. You can just push another button, and you've got 150,000 friends to communicate with and talk about your belief in what you're looking at. Because we're no longer stuck in that religion we're born with. It doesn't take a lot of research to see a bunch of crazy ideas. You know, some of them we go, I could never believe that, but somebody is. And we have been given the freedom in this country to think what we want. Do you know how rare that is? Think about that. There's countries where you have to follow along with the tenets of the religion, but the rules of the country. And every time I see somebody protesting, I go, yes. Quite often I want to get in the protest, you know. I'm kind of one of those people that protested so many different things as I was growing up. And because I'm delighted that we had the freedom to do that. You all have the freedom to find what you want to do. But there's always been those ideas floating around. Even when there was just one game in town. If you and I asked you how many were raised Catholic, when I say that, you can go back to you were supposed to believe a certain way. And other times you had to believe a certain way. And if you didn't believe a certain way, you were bad. And how can you do that to a kid? How can they say you're bad at a certain age because you think differently? The nuns had a hard time with me when I was Catholic. You notice I jump around a bit by various religions I've been. But when I was a Catholic and I said to the nun, what did Jesus die of? And she looked at me and she said, well, they hung him on a cross. I said, I could hang on a cross for weeks. You know, I got enough material here, enough flesh, I could just hang there. And I said, I don't believe that.
Oh. Uh-oh.
I sat outside for a while, yeah. It wasn't until I was in college and taking a physiology class, I found out that if you stand like this for more than 2 to 3 hours, all of a sudden your lungs start filling up with fluid.
Yeah.
You drown. What a horrible way to go. I mean, that's a horrible death. Yes.
That's why the mixture of blood and water came out when he was speared in the side.
Right. And that's why it's almost like you're checking a turkey to see if it's done. I hate to use that. But they poked him in the side, and when it was running clear, they knew he was almost dead because of the fluid filling up. But you think of somebody teaching religion, and this is the pivotal person in their religion would know that. And of course, my other one was who did Cain and Abel marry?
Yeah.
And got sent outside again.
Yeah.
Hey, this was in Lancaster. That was pretty bad to have to sit outside again.
In the desert.
In the
Go to
desert. And then I was told nothing. And I read that they say in the Bible that they married the women from the land of Nod. Doesn't say
The
much
other
more than
people.
that. But there were other people there, and I had never been taught that. And I was amazed to find
See,
out.
these are the people without the original sin.
Uh-huh.
Think about it.
Right, right.
The Shakers.
But when you think of that, I was still asking, and I wasn't thrown in jail. Though sometimes being in the sun in Lancaster feels like that, but it was okay. I got it. I don't ask those questions, but it didn't mean I stopped thinking. And that's the joy of being in the United States. You don't have to stop thinking. You can come with it later and you'll find your answer. And it was very important for me to find that answer. So think of that. How many of you have been a shopaholic? How many of you shopped around for religion? Anybody in here besides me shop around to find different religions?
Sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, and you go, well, what about that one? What about this one? Oh, I like that about this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when
That
you
about
do
that one. And I like
that about that one. And when you do that, you go, oh, yeah, that reminds me of that dress I bought with the horizontal stripes that I never wore. I don't think I'm going to stick with that one. But you find these different things that you do like, and you get excited about, and you talk about it. And for me, mine was, I got very excited about science of mind. And many of you have heard this story. I became a science of mind minister. And do you know what the name of my church was? Center for Creative Living. Yeah. When I moved from one church to another, I took the name with me. It's kind of like when you move and you take your sign. Well, that's what I did. So when I was a part of the Science of Mind Church, they don't allow you to touch somebody when you're doing a healing. You do a mind treatment. You do a treatment sitting in a chair, and they're sitting in a chair. And when that hit me, because I was telling somebody I'd had a person in my office who had just lost her husband 3 days before. And she came in to see me, and she was very distraught. And she threw herself on the floor, screaming in pain and sorrow. And I laid down next to her. And I just held her and let her sob. And they said, "Oh no, you can't do that. That's not giving a treatment." I said, "It was the best thing. I'm just big enough and old enough." It was like her mom was cuddling her. Her mom was dead at the time. Your mom probably still is dead now that I think of it. It was one of those things that she needed that, you know? And she needed that comforting of another human being. And then they say, well, you can't do anything from the podium that is like prophecy. Well, that's what I'm about, you know? So at that point in time, I said, I think I'm going to find another church, and I found our wonderful UCM. And it was one of those things that I don't believe in doing something I'm not supposed to, but I also don't believe in lying. And you know, somebody once said, "Dottie, you're the most transparent person I know." Yeah, ask me, I'll tell you. That's true. Right now, the religiously unaffiliated, isn't that a great name? Mm-hmm. The religiously unaffiliated are the third largest religion in the world. It goes Muslim, Christian, religiously unaffiliated.
Ah.
Yeah. And who are those spiritual people? Are they spiritualists? Are they both? Like I see in this room, so many of you are both. And that's what's going on. And roughly a fifth of the American public are spiritually unaffiliated. And a third of those are under 30. So we have these young people who just don't know what to believe. It could be that they were raised by a mom who was Jewish and a dad who was Catholic, and they don't know what to believe. It could be anything. But we're having so many as spiritually unaffiliated. I love that word. I always called them agnostic because I knew that they were interested in the Creator, they believed in God, but they didn't have a name for what they were looking for. I feel that having a choice is a good thing. Yes, Jen?
I was going to say, wouldn't a better term be religiously unaffiliated?
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Because they're spiritual.
They're spiritual, yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of, yeah, but let's, you know, keep looking at what is a spiritual person. Okay, but anyway, the fact that we have a choice. Now it's pretty clear. A lot of the old school mainstream organization religions aren't really working, and the churches on the corner aren't working. The old warriors just aren't doing the job. So it's kind of time to look at who you really are. So our spiritual teachings need to keep up. Because for some people, they look at meditation, they look at yoga, they look at astrology, they look at readings, they look at all of these things as combined. We started out this morning with auras. Talk about auras. All of these things can combine and become what I call a spiritual spiritualist. Because we're everywhere. So it's pretty easy these days to be distracted. You know, it's pretty easy to watch Netflix all weekend or concentrate on videos of water skiing squirrels. I mean, there's so many things that you can do with your time. But why not take some time to contemplate? Figure out who you are. Are you a spiritual being? Are you a spiritualist? What is all of this? What is spirituality? Who are you? You can't just all come too quick. Now, knowing who or what to trust isn't easy. We're making choices, and some of the choices are not believing what our parents did. And that's hard for us to do. Because nothing has prepared us for this. This is unlike anything anybody else is going through. So hopefully you're ready to make these choices. What are you facing? For me, I believe in God. I believe in all of you. I believe in the voice in my head that I call a spirit, I call Mom. I believe we have had and continue to have amazing masters who bring new messages from the Creator. And I believe in love. Thank you so much. Okay. Wow. I think it's ready.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So is spiritual and spiritualist, is that redundant, or is that?
No, they're two different
two
things.
completely different things.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're both, you would say you're a spiritualist,
You
or
can,
just say
or you can find the
spiritualist?
word that works best for you. Yeah. See, our church was founded on spiritualist principles, and it was formed that way because it was helping people who were doing spiritualist work. But it's also New Thought Church, and that's a spiritual church, so we're both. Yeah, I like that. Yes.
I actually went to a church that was of the spiritualist church.
That's all they did, yeah, exactly, and they do readings from the pulpit, and they do all sorts of different things, yeah. And here we kind of blend both the spiritual, because I believe in that spirituality of you don't have to be a religious person, but you can believe in God on your ground, on how you want
But
to.
saying you're spiritual doesn't really say anything. But
Yeah, it doesn't really.
Saying you're spiritualist does.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you got it, Lisa. Yeah. Saying you're a spiritualist says, I am talking to spirit and I'm getting in touch with the other side. I believe in life after death. I have a lot of different beliefs. Saying you're spiritual says, I'm not sure what religion I am, but I know there's a creator.
Gotcha.
Okay. So that's why I say we need another term.
That is agnostic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yes, Tom.
You know, when we did the How to Die Easily and Gracefully workshop, which was called something else, but that's kind of a quick name for it, I asked the question of the audience, how many of you believe in life after death? Or existence after death, or that there's something after death? And about half of them raised their hand.
It was 3 out of 20.
Is that right? Did you
Yeah.
count?
It was 3 out of 20 raised their hand. Now
Is that right?
maybe twice as many would have raised their hand but didn't. But it was way,
I was
Don't do it.
shocked.
yeah.
Now, I was sitting up front, so
But look at the age of the people.
but they weren't all old. They were young. They were 40 and up,
Yeah.
did you say?
But that's what she's saying. They were
Oh,
40
younger?
Yeah, the under 30 is the ones that are really coming out and saying we're spiritual.
Yeah, but this whole idea, which I have known since I was born, I think, that there was life after death. There's life with a body and life without a body. So it's so shocking to me to find people that don't immediately understand that and just exist in that world where you step back and forth.
But isn't it wonderful they can have that choice to believe either way?
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
And of course, who's my daughter-in-law? I've never seen anything that proved God to me, therefore I don't believe in God. God, you do have a sense of humor. Why did you send me this daughter-in-law?
Thank you. And, Dr. Elaine, we can get back. Okay, if you're all ready.